Good afternoon, folks. It is about 10 minutes of 4 o'clock on 4/20, April 20th, 2015. And I guess the Boston Marathon was run today. And I just wanted to take a few minutes to recap and talk about what my personal experiences were the week of the marathon bombing when I went into Boston. Now, the producers from Gray State, it so happened that they were going to be in town and they were looking for somebody to kind of drive them around. So I said I'd be interested in helping out. So I met with the crew that came out there to Boston, and we went around. We took a bunch of footage for the documentary Gray State: The Rise. We talked to some people that were in and around town, and we got the opportunity to off the record interview a few members of the National Guard. We had asked them what they thought about their presence there in relation to Posse Comitatus. For those of you that don't know, Posse Comitatus, not only does it mean that the government can't force soldiers to be quartered in your house, it also means that as American citizens, you're not to be policed by the military because the rules of engagement are different. So, you know, in light of the last couple of years, we've seen the militarization of the police. There's been plenty of organizations that have reported on it. You're more likely to be killed by a cop in the United States than you are to be killed by a terrorist. So basically what we saw that day, we were in town Thursday, I believe it was the 19th. And like I said, we went around and we got a bunch of footage. We saw what was to be martial law unfolding. We saw about a company of National Guard, maybe 150 National Guard, assembling in Boston Common, several different law enforcement agencies, some of which we couldn't identify, and maybe a dozen and a half Humvees. I'm not really sure, but basically on the anniversary of what was the week of Paul Revere's Midnight Ride, going door to door, telling people that the British were coming, Boston began to lock down in a state of, we'll call it soft tyranny, because a whole bunch of people did get killed, but it was basically an unfolding. It was a dress rehearsal for martial law and how they'll deal with events going forward. And it's kind of like a psychological thing, too, because it's training Americans to think that this is going to be the new norm, you know. This is what we have to do to combat terrorism. Well, basically, the situations that we're in with terrorism, they come directly from bad U.S. foreign policy that that goes outside the authority of the Constitution. Everything that we're dealing with in the world now, it's not because people hate us because we're free. It's not because, you know, we're rich or anything like that. It's because of what the United States government does in the name of the American citizens and without the knowledge and consent of the governed. So, yeah, back to Boston. We spent the whole day there and into the night. We met Lawrence O'Donnell and Aaron Burnett, and we were right there as all the camera crews were outside, and the cop got shot in Watertown. So we watched that story develop from behind the scenes as they tried to piece together what was going on. So I finished my time there with the Gray State crew. Get to meet Luke Rudowski, excellent journalist. If you're not familiar with him, look him up. We Are Change. And as I drove home that night back towards New Hampshire, I mean, things were just unfolding. I literally saw dozens and dozens and dozens of various law enforcement vehicles flying on 95 southbound. towards Boston. And, regardless of what anybody really thinks Boston's about, just look at all the times that we catch the media lying to us, and look at all the times you catch politicians lying to you. They take a traumatic event like this and they create a narrative for you and just kind of shove it down your throat as a pretext to take away your liberty. And as I listened on the radio today, them describing what the new rules for going to watch the Boston Marathon, which is really a celebration of Patriots Day, it just made me think of that, how Americans are conditioned. In Boston, the legacy of the American Revolution, where liberty kind of took shape in the United States, and people said enough is enough. You folks are so stinking brainwashed down there. A bunch of statists that are dependent on the states, and dependent on government to keep you safe, but you're not safe because your enemy is your government. Your government's making war against you. The economy's not bad. You're just not recognizing that the tactic being used against you is attrition, heavy taxation, devaluation of your dollar. Your taxes aren't paying to pave roads. Your taxes are paying to make war and sustain empire worldwide, while enslaving you, putting video cameras all over the place, and keeping road pirates on the road to pull you over if you fought in the wrong direction. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about that. Just don't go confusing patriotism with unchecked nationalism. Not everything that comes wrapped in an American flag, and nowadays, in fact, most things that are wrapped in an American flag are not about freedom. Learn to question things a little more, and don't just take what you get off Fox, CNN, MSNBC, and your politicians. Don't just take it for granted and just swallow hook, line, and sinker everything they're feeding to you, because there's a lot of propaganda there. And but as long as you got your sports programs and your television and your distractions, I guess you're making their job a lot easier for them. Well, have a good day, everybody. Signing off.